Mildly Indecisive podcast. I'm your co-host Ian Bambro. Joined with me today, my co-host Isaac Hamilton. Yeah. All right. So this conversation topic's come up a lot with like a bunch of my other friends, and it's the fact that like I don't seem to have a perception of what is old. So like,
what is old?
So like, how old is old to you, right?
I don't know though. Depends on the context you're talking about. Cause think about this. There's like dating age, right? Like okay, if you're going out with a girl that's like 40 and you're 20, that's old. But in different contexts, that person's not old. They're like I don't know what you can say. Is that middle age?
Okay, so yeah, 40 is definitely middle age. 40 is 100% middle age. But here's my thing, right? One, I think your concept of old changes as you get older, right? And then two, old, I think it's like something that you shouldn't necessarily like be upset by when someone's like, you're old. This all started when I was over at my cousin's place for my grandma's like 70 whatever birthday. And this happened, you know, probably like 4 or 5 years back. But we were sitting there talking, and they were like, oh, you're turning, I think I must have been turning like 16 or 17 because I could start driving or something like that, right? And I go, yeah, I'm so old, man. And everyone just kind of looked, and you're like, your grandmother's turning like 74. How do you think that makes her feel? And I was like, well, shit, like, I guess, but like, she's old. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, it's not a bad thing, but like, everyone is like shocked, and like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure my aunt was pretty mad at me for it, but I'm like, I don't know. Sorry, grandma, this is the harsh reality, I guess. But like, I don't know. Like, it's not a bad thing that you're old.
I don't think so. You're more wise.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. I think it's hard though for some people because you kind of don't like. It's weird to think about this, right? Like, because at our age, especially when you're like 20 years old, like there is a peak. You hit a peak for almost everything in your life. You hit like your peak attractiveness. You hit your peak like fitness. You know, like even if you work out like every day when you're 50, you still aren't going to get that same strength that you could have when you were 20.
Right.
And like, I don't even know, man. Like, there's some things that like I already feel like I'm getting old on. Like, I don't know, like having a drink when a year or two ago, I'd have a lot of drinks. I'd wake up the next morning, feel fine. I could go through my day. I do that now. Holy crap. Like, I'm not even that old.
One of the weirdest things to me about like age is like, again, you were saying how like it depends on the context, but like as a child, like when you were like in middle school or whatever, you thought literally the next grade up from you was the oldest person you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? Where you hit like university, college, and you're like in a class with people that could literally be 30, and you're like, oh, you're not that old. Like, you're 10 years older than I am, but you're not that old. Like, I'm friends with at least 3 people that are 10 years older than I am. And like, that's not that big a deal to me.
It's just different though, because when you're at different like ages, you have different experience. I don't. I hang out with mostly people my own age. Like, I like people that are older than me and stuff like that. I've worked with and stuff like that. But like,
I feel like age is like a terrible way to gauge like how responsible or how like well spoken people are. Like, you typically think that like when you're in your 40s or 50s, you've been working professionally for a while, you're typically a little more like well spoken, put together, whatever. But like, I think there's like your physical age, and then there's like your mental age, and like some people are still like mentally like 22 years old, but they're 30 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, bro. But like, there's some people that like, I don't know, age doesn't really mean anything to them. Like, here's the thing about age. If you believe that it's going to hold you back, it's going to hold you back. But if you don't, if you just think like, oh, you know what, I'm old, but like I can still do all the stuff I could when I was young. Typically you can. A lot of people, like, I don't know, my grandparents both work and do different stuff like they would when they were like 40, 30, 20, all that kind of stuff. My grandpa still does like carpentry after he retired. He basically didn't retire. Like, I don't know, if you love to do stuff and you just keep doing it and you don't give up on stuff just because of that old age, I don't think it affects you quite the same as those people that think, oh, I'm just old and I've lost my faculties. Like, and also too, it's not a bad thing, because with that experience, you get so much like learned knowledge that like the younger generation doesn't necessarily have. So you know way more, you've dealt with way more, and you are way better. Think about even things like that you develop as you get older, like your social skills, even like emotional control and stuff like that. Imagine how good you are at that when you're old. Like you think of the physical losses of ability you have, yes, but for the most part, there's got to be like I guess there's a sweet spot though, because as you start getting really old, you start losing all your faculties, and at that point, I don't know. I think that's just a tough look. But.
I mean, that's not necessarily true. Like my grandmother's 93 years old, had a stroke like a year and a half ago, and she still every day in the winter goes to the basement, starts the wood stove, goes upstairs, goes about her day. In the summer, she has an entire garden that she still maintains by herself. Like, she lives in the middle of nowhere just by herself doing all this stuff all the time. Like, I understand, like, to a degree, once you start, like, really losing stuff, like, then it kind of becomes a challenge. It's probably not, like, the greatest thing in the world. But, I don't know. I think with age, like, each age has, like, a specific role in society, right? Like, children are meant to be cheery, you know, absorbing knowledge, becoming what we would consider as, like, young adults. Young adults are there to, you know, make the mistakes, but they're progressing in their lives. Once you kind of hit that like full adult stage, you're like a productive member of society for like the majority of your life. And then you hit like the elderly stage, you retire, and like your role as an elderly person isn't to like be necessarily a productive member of society by like working every day, but to be productive in the sense that like you have this wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you've garnered over the course of, you know, the 65 whatever years you've lived, and your job now is to share that knowledge with like the youth and the young adults of the world, to try and teach them the values and lessons that you learned throughout your life.
Old age though is I guess that's like should be the idea of old people, but it's not necessarily always that. I guess like depends too on how you've lived your life, because I feel like a lot of like older people had this notion, especially like in the generation of older people we have now, that like they could work hard for their life, and then once they retired and they were done, it was all going to be magic and better. But I don't necessarily know if that proves true at this point. I don't know if when you're retired you can necessarily have like you're necessarily better off than you would have been having more fun when you were younger. Like it's a weird concept to think about, right? That retirement thing, that you're one day, we haven't even gotten in the workforce, and then one day you're done working basically, and you just live off whatever money you've saved up for kind of the rest of your life. I don't know. Seems odd.
I think the one thing that kind of ruined old age was the introduction of like retirement homes, because that's the last place anyone wants to end up. It's like it's like an asylum for old people, right? Is really what it's like. And no one wants to be like the Hannibal Lecter in this situation, right? No one wants to just be stuck in this asylum. And I think that's now like the fear that everyone has, that we're all going to get just thrown into a home and forgotten about, and that's what like the last thing they want.
Yeah, but like I don't know. That's like you've made choices. I don't know. I don't know anybody like here's the people that end up in homes though, are the like elderly people that can't take care of themselves, but then also require like family members to either take care of them, and their family members don't always, I don't want to say don't love them, because there's lots of people that love their grandparents and still decide to put them in a home, but have decided that like they're not gonna use their time for that. And like I don't know, I get that, but I don't get the putting somebody in a home thing. I get in some situations it may be difficult. I also don't think people know how bad some of the homes truly are.
Well, that's just
think
the
COVID
thing.
really shines some light on that. Like people have died. I saw this guy on TikTok that apparently got fired because he unplugged somebody's dialysis machine at an old folks' home.
Jesus
phone
Christ.
charger.
Oh my
so
God.
bad.
That's the sign that our generation is fucked. Because we just are glued to our phones. Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. We're glued to our phones. He's getting sued. No shit. You basically killed somebody. You like indirectly ended somebody's life. Like that's like me walking up to you just snipping a blood vessel from your heart. Like,
how is that not like a
throwing
manslaughter charge though? You know what I mean?
I don't know, but like I don't know. Well, the guy's not on TikTok anymore. That's the weird thing about TikTok. You see all these people from God knows where doing God knows what.
Yeah.
And the best part is the dumber they are, the more viewers they get.
I think that's the issue with it. We're letting stupid people take over the world through like via the internet.
Bro, the world is getting stupider though. Like
that's so true.
People are getting dumber. And it's not even it's just cuz it's easier now. Everything's easier. We have like a weird problem nowadays, because what I was going to say is, you know how like your parents grew up, if they wanted to, they had to write a research paper, a paper of any kind. You basically had to go to a library, find a friggin' book, read that book, and then use the information of that book. And it wasn't like you could quickly search for information for ideas you already thought you had. You already had. You kind of had to do the research ahead of time, get educated, and then use that to make a paper of some kind, where now you can come up with ideas and then find information about it to help you further better that point. But the problem is, what they never had to do was they never were unsure of the reliability of that information. Where now, when you go on Google and you search something, that information, whatever you're going off of, isn't necessarily reliable. So you get all these extreme points of view because everybody's going off different data, and there's not really a great indication of like what is fact and what is not. We have like so much information, but like no way of distinguishing from reality.
No, and I think that's fair. Like, to put it into like perspective, right? Like, I've written probably a good 10s, 20s, 30 papers, right? I could probably tell you one or two facts about, maybe 3 of the papers, but like, I don't retain that information. I just take a point that I have, like you said, find some stuff to back it. Don't learn it. Just do enough of get enough of an understanding that I can use it to back a point, throw it into a paper, like submit it, and then forget everything I just did and move on to the next thing. And I don't know if it's that we just don't necessarily value the information as much, or if we just don't have the time that they used to. Like, our world seems to be moving so much faster than our parents did, right? Where like, I don't necessarily have the time to sit down and read an entire book to do research. Like, I look for research papers that are like max 10 pages, and then if it's longer than that, I just disregard it entirely. And it's like, I think it also goes down to like our attention span, because our attention spans are so much less than like our parents or whatever. And like, that's seen through, especially through like the YouTube stuff, where like videos that are longer than like 10-15 minutes never really get watched as much because no one makes it to the end of them. Or like TikTok, how everything is in this short form media, even Instagram and like the IGTV stuff, right? Most of it's like super short form, because no one can pay attention to anything for longer than 5 minutes.
No, that's very factual. Nobody has much of an attention span. And like, it's weird too, because I think the best way to get ahead is to actually do the things of the people, is to use your attention span to push it, right? A lot of people that read a ton of books end up doing very well because they retain a lot of knowledge. Think about how much stuff a person can put in a book versus a 30-second video. Right. So we get this, like, it's weird because we don't have in-depth knowledge. We have surface level understanding of a lot of things. And that's what's kind of weird. And then with that surface level, people form concrete opinions, which is the other problem I have with society today. Because when you form concrete opinions on very shallow ideas and very shallow knowledge, you're not necessarily forming what would be the best opinion. A lot of the time you get so closed off afterwards because all these other people form the same opinion based off the short thing they've seen, and now you believe that to be fact, even though it may not be.
Yeah, and I think this is like a conversation you and I have had like probably, handful of times, where I hate when people, post stuff on their social media that they found somewhere else without digging deeper into it, because half the time they're wrong about it. right? Half the time that post that they're reposting is biased in some way that it misrepresents the information. And it drives me absolutely up the wall because I can't fathom being so uneducated on something that I'm just like mindlessly throwing it out there and putting my name on it, like an opinion, when that opinion can be one, wrong, but two, detrimental to like my image.
But the other thing too, I guess, with news sources even is there now. So news sources even have had to get more extreme with what they sell because of the internet and social media. Because the stuff on social media that generates buzz is headlines. And now news places can't compete with social media because social media is just absolutely blowing them out of the market. Because they have to make stuff more and more exciting every time to get more and more social media attention. And the problem with like with that is then it becomes these polarizing cases, and you end up with the Fox News and the CNN. Like, you have two polar opposite in news that both say they're the most reliable. You know what, the one thing? Ben Shapiro has his own news station. It's called the Daily Wire. The one difference between his thing, it's heavily conservative, and it's very, very biased. But he states that it is a conservative news channel, and it is biased. They pre-state their biases. I think people need to be aware. I think these news should be required to state they're biased if they have a left-leaning or a right-leaning agenda, and allow kind of, so that way people understand what they're listening to and can go over and maybe listen to some of the other sides, so then it can get both sides of the equation, because you never really get the full story without both sides, because everybody's going to have two different opinions on everything.
Right. I think especially with when you were talking about like taglines, right? How they have to have like the craziest tagline to get people's attention. I think that's another difference between like our generation and previous ones. Is like previous generations, their media was just more concrete, factual. Like, this is what happened. Here's the story. There might still be some biases, but I feel like biases got amplified as soon as we started saying things like, like bringing it far left, far right, and creating like this exaggerated reality of the situation, right? And like that's the sad part, because like that's also the reason why I think our media these days tend to be less thoughtful and more like the shock factor, the shock value of it, right? So like a lot of movies nowadays are like this action movie, all this sorts of stuff, but like I find it hard to find underlying messages in a lot of movies these days, where when you watch like an older film, you're like, oh, this is the message they're sending out to the people watching it. Or even in music, right? Like, especially in hip hop, there used to be like more of a message behind a lot of the songs. Now it's a lot of club music, which, don't get me wrong, is fantastic, right? It's fun because it's more based on feeling rather than content. But I still think there needs to be a market for content so that we can have something that kind of teaches us while we enjoy it.
Elon Musk is taking a look at one of the cool things he's done, and everybody knows him for his startups, but he actually started like a schooling program. And basically the idea is he doesn't divide kids by age, and he focuses on problem solving skills and teamwork. So these kids get very good at utilizing other members of their team based on the skills they know each of them have. They understand their own skills, what they bring to the table, but then they also understand the skills of their peers. So then when they're asked to complete a task, they can utilize the best people, and the kids will tell you, will say, we're going to use him for this because it's under tight time crunch, and this is why he works better under pressure. Or this is very complicated but has a long time to be done, so this guy's a much slower thinker but comes up with better ideas. So it was cool because they're teaching school in a more functional and practical way, I think, where a lot of the cookie cutter just classes for everybody doesn't really highlight individual skills and doesn't teach people how to utilize them, right? One of the biggest things with leadership is not how well you can, and I don't mean use people, like, but how you can make each person the ultimate like person, do the most for whatever you're trying to do.
You're playing to their skill set.
yeah, you want to ideally, like a lot of people say when dating, the best couples and the relationships that last the longest aren't when you find somebody that's similar to you. It's when you find somebody that their strengths are what you're weak in. Because if you have weaknesses and you pick a partner that has that is strong in those areas that you're weak, but you're strong in the areas they're weak, then you've got a very good team. But you also don't interfere with each other, because you use each other's strengths rather than compete with each other about things that, like, if you had the same strengths, you'd be constantly competing with each other. Instead, you're utilizing that.
Yeah,
so I think that's sense. Like a very interesting just look at education in general.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, you were telling me a little bit earlier how like you had been listening to something or read something about there's like this like level theory to age and how
this is another, this is why I love the internet. All right, TikTok is the best app for this reason only. You see so much good content because you get everybody's ideas, but this guy has this idea and I think it's great. So people don't like getting old for various reasons, because they feel old or whatever, but I think it's just because of the way we phrase age. We just give it a number. You've lived for this many years. Nah, screw that. Life is like a game. In the game of life, we should do it by levels. Is what this guy's pitching, and I love it. Imagine, like, I'm on level 20 right now. That would be like somebody at level 87, bro. My grandma or grandparents, like, when they up at their level, they like, bro, I made to level 75. Like, you can't be talking your shit yet. Like, you haven't even made it close to this level, bro. And the thing is, some levels are harder for other people, which is kind of a cool way of thinking about it. In this game of life, some levels are going to be more difficult than others. Some years are going to be harder than others because everybody has different circumstances.
So instead of saying like
the longer you can go, the more you're winning in the game of life, I guess.
Right. So you could say like in reference to it being a game, right? You could say that level 21 for you was much harder than say level 22, right?
Yeah.
But instead of being like, oh my God, this year, like 2021 was sucked, it was difficult, you'd be like 2021 was or 21 was a hard level.
Yeah, level 21's kicking my ass, or level 22's kicking my ass. Yeah, like exactly.
But then you hit level 23 and you're like, level 23 is my shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I feel like it's like a more positive spin on it.
But here's the problem though. It also though highlights the idea that the higher level you get to, the better your life is. And I don't know if that I'd rather be here for a short time and a good time than a shitty existence in a long time. Like I'd rather live a short life that I really enjoy than a long life that isn't fun. Like that I'm miserable.
What if there were like, instead of taking it year by year as level per level, you did it like there were milestones you had to hit to reach the next level of your existence? So we created like a weird hierarchy within the society of levels.
Ian, we're not allowed to do hierarchies on anything else ever anymore. So what would make you think we could hierarchy people based on their age?
You could create like a George Orwell 1984 social class. That'd be fucking crazy though.
This is the problem with a lot of these movies. People, their hierarchies exist, and the people that are low in them have just decided that they're going to declare war on the hierarchies. And just, I don't know, you got to respect hierarchies. At some point, every kingdom has them. Like a vegan asks, why do you guys not eat meat or why do you guys think it's morally correct to eat meat? And here's my opinion on why it's morally correct to eat meat, even though we have alternatives. If we were not designed to be at the top of the food chain, if we were not the top dog, we wouldn't have been like, we're the top dog for a reason. If the only reason we're at the top of the food chain is because we're smart enough to kill everything else. We don't have the athletic ability of every other animal. We just more intelligent. We're winning this game. We're ruling the planet, basically. So if we weren't designed to, and if we're really screwing it up that much, then something else that's stronger than us should take us out, evolutionary style. But it hasn't. So we should just, in order to continue evolving, I think we just need to continue utilizing the resource we got. Now, there's some things that we can't do because if we keep doing them, like we got to look at our climate eventually. Because if we keep getting more and more extreme weather, we're going to extinct ourselves.
So we're like too smart for our own good, is what you're saying?
Well, no. All I'm saying is that
Or
if
are
you want
we
to make the
not smart
argument,
enough?
if you want to make the argument that we weren't supposed to eat animals, like a lot of vegan people like to make, no, we were. Otherwise, we wouldn't be at the top.
If
That's all
we
I'm saying.
weren't meant to eat animals, we also wouldn't have developed the like features
the nutrient needs
that and the features that allow us to be able to process this. Like we have the canines and whatever other teeth that allow you to be able to eat that kind of food, right? If you were to try and get, like something that was a herbivore to try and eat meat, it would have such a hard time chewing through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not built that way. So we've been built biologically in a way that we can eat meat.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Yeah. And also, too, we wouldn't, like, you need certain animal proteins. You need certain animal fats. You need calcium.
Right. Bringing it kind of back around though to the whole old person thing, right? The one thing I love about getting older is the fact that you can have more of like a no fucks given kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Like, I love watching old people out in public because they will literally give no shits about anything around them. You could be saying the stupidest stuff and they will straight face just keep on walking. And I really saw this. So yesterday I woke up 11:55, had to be at work for 12, run to work, right? Get there, walk in. My boss hits me first thing. You want to be on TV? And like in a daze, catching my breath, I go, yeah, sure. And then it clicks and I go, wait, what the fuck did you just say to me? And so I had to do this interview for CTV for our restaurant. Then later that night, I get an email from one of my profs. And my prof, the subject line of his email was, I saw you tonight. Already creepy. The next thing, the body of the paragraph, all it said was, looking good. Now, I understand it makes sense in context. But you should give a little more of a fuck to just realize that email is creepy as all sin. But this guy is old. So he's got the point where he's just typing this out because it's easy, doesn't really care, it gets the message across. If I were to have written something like that at my age to someone else, I would have police knocking at my door being like, are you stalking this person? I think if I were to get old, I would actually, I would love to be a Walmart greeter for the whole, sense that I would sit there at my job or stand there or whatever. And I think I would just try and find ways to screw with people. And it'd be like, they'd come over and ask me, like, do you know where this is in the store? And intentionally, I'd point them somewhere else. And then if they came back and found me again, they'd be like, oh, it wasn't there, that was the wrong aisle. I would just keep sending them to the wrong place and just claim that I just forgot because of my old age. I think that'd be so entertaining as an old person. But I don't know, I feel like I'd also be like the old person to screw with my friends and family and just like fake a heart attack, Boy Who Cried Wolf style. But who knows? I feel like that could also go terribly wrong again. Boy Who Cried Wolf just end up dying because they didn't believe that I was actually, having a heart attack or something along those lines. But who knows? I don't know. I feel like too many people are scared of old age. Old age shouldn't be something you're necessarily frightened of. It's something to work towards. And if you lived your life in a way that you felt was, how it should be lived, you should end up in a spot where you should be able to look back on life and be like, oh, I accomplished something, or oh, I did this, or I remember that. It was a great moment, and be able to sit back and kind of take in everything you've done as a human. It's kind of like when you go on vacation, and when you're there, you the whole point leading up to it, you're excited for it, right? That's kind of like your childhood. You're like, oh, I'm gonna be an astronaut, I'm gonna be this, that, and then eventually you kind of get there and your expectations become reality, or they become more realistic, and like, oh, I'm not gonna be an astronaut, but I'm gonna be, I don't know, like I'll be a marine biologist, whatever, or I'm not gonna be the best chef in the world, but I'm gonna be a cook. Right. And it's like on vacation, you get there and you're like, this is a nice hotel. It's not a 5-star. It's still a 3-4 star hotel, whatever. Then you enjoy your time while you're there, but you're living it in the moment. You're not taking everything in necessarily for what it was. And then when you go home from vacation, you remember, you're looking through the photos, you're really like taking everything in, remembering life as it was. And that's kind of how I feel like age and old age works. Is like every moment leading up to your old age is you either pre-vacation or during vacation, and old age is like post-vacation, where that's how you're like recollecting on everything.
I was just fucking incredibly sick to my stomach. Now I think it has something to do with the almost a liter of iced tea I've drank in since we started this podcast.
And the fact 30 minutes ago. The fact that it's super acidic.
Pure sugar. So, and super acidic. So we got some water here.
All right, we good.
It is long, and I feel pretty good now. So as long as we don't fucking long, I was like, Ian, you're talking, and I'm literally sitting here. I'm like, fuck, I think I'm gonna puke. I'm sweating. Like, oh my god.
Did you end up puking?
Yeah, I did. I threw up a shit ton. Holy crap.
Jesus. Feel better now?
Oh, a million times. And the thing is, like, I don't know. Usually it comes back a little bit right after you're done. You feel good for a second, and then like. It starts to come back, but it's not coming back. So nice. I think I just had to get all the iced tea out of me.
Fair enough. Okay. Well,
all right.
On that note,
back to it.
So I was just kind of comparing the whole idea of old age to how like a vacation, how like youth is you're getting excited for life, and like before a vacation you're kind of getting excited for the vacation, and then during your vacation you're just kind of living in the moment, right? And like during life you've kind of come down to realize that you're not going to be an astronaut, but you can be maybe a marine biologist, or you're not going to be the best chef in the world, but you can still be a pretty damn good cook. And then like
it's so funny though, because
old age is you recollecting and like really taking in everything you've done in your life. And that's kind of like what happens after vacation. You're looking back at the photos and remembering all the good times and really taking in everything you've done.
I like that analogy, actually. I don't know. I think even in old age, I think you've figured out what it makes you happy. And what I find cool about a lot of old people is they really know it. Like they know themselves, and they understand kind of the bare minimum of what they need. Mm-hmm. And I think through the rest of your life, you're kind of trying to figure that out. And I think if you try and put too much emphasis on doing one thing and you fail at it, it's going to be even tougher than if you had just kind of like materialized yourself in many things. Because like there's that age, right, where you realize that those dreams you had as a kid are for most people are probably not going to come to fruition. Like at a certain age, every kid that plays hockey realizes he's not going to make the NHL. There's a better than not chance that no matter how hard you work, you are probably not going to make it. Unless you're at a certain level by that point. Same with, I don't know though, cooking's one of those things. You can become a master if you put hours and hours and hours into it, but like it's hard. Mm-hmm. There's so many amazing chefs in the world that it's hard to do. So there's that like weird point where you give up on your dreams and decide to become realistic. And I think that's like the one spot where people may go wrong a lot. They assume since they can't chase their dream, they just do something that pays the bills and gets it done. But I don't think that's the way to go. You gotta figure out something else that you really enjoy to do that is actually feasible and practical with your life. The great part about the 21st century, you can pretty much do anything you want to do as long as you can find a way to make money at that. Like I was looking, I don't know. I love to ski. So after school, I was hoping to do a career with skiing. And I was like, you know what? I'm curious. What kind of careers can I think of that involve skiing that you don't need to be, because I'm not a professional. I'm a very, very good skier. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say anything against that, but I'm not a professional. I can't go and do backflips going down cliffs and stuff like that. However, the guys that film those are not professionals, and the only requirements are professional skiing. So, or is that you can ski well. So wouldn't it be cool? It's cool, like for me to think that I could do a job eventually, even just for a couple of years and don't make much money, but have a lot of fun, ski and film professionals doing it. Then that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Like whatever you like to do, you can find some way to make money at.
Well, I know you even talked about at one point, like, I know it's not directly skiing, but taking something you love, which is hospitality and working in this industry because you just like being interactive with people, and going and working at a ski resort. Now, you may not actually be working skiing, but you're in a place that's the main like activity. You get to spend your days after work or prior to work skiing. Like, I know what you mean. Like, I think people go wrong by thinking they can't do something because they can't do it directly how they want to. It can't just be handed to them. They can't find a workaround.
You know, the other thing too, I think a lot of people don't do stuff because of other people, which I find so funny, right? Like, if I know a lot of people that will text, like say you send out a text and nobody responds, like you really want to go do something and nobody else is down to do it with you, they just won't go do it. I'm like the opposite. I'll just go do it by myself and hopefully I have a fun time. Like, one cool thing that I find that I think builds a lot of conversational skills is, have you ever been to a restaurant by yourself? Like, eaten at a restaurant completely alone?
Here's the weird thing. Yes, but most of the time I'm also doing schoolwork when I'm doing that.
Okay. I don't know. So for me, I used to go into, there's this shawarma place, Peanut Nutso. I used to go there all the time, like 3 o'clock on my break when I'd be working, and eat there. And I'd sit there for like half an hour. And it was the funnest thing ever because I got to know the guys in there really well just from sitting there chatting with them.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. There's this restaurant called the Iconic Cafe at the bottom of my mom's like office building. And I'd go and sit at the bottom of that and wait for my mom to be finished work like once a month, and for a ride home. And I got to know the guy that ran the kitchen very well, and he was this guy from Sweden, and he actually got out his like notebook that he had made over the course of his career. This guy was like 60 years old and showed me like all of his notes for different things. It was crazy.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like, just being out there and doing things puts you in a situation that makes you like interact in environments that may not be the most comfortable, but make you develop as a person. And
I don't know. I'm also different. Like, I don't know if everybody would necessarily enjoy that, but I always find you meet the most, you just get different stuff. You get different conversations. You meet different people. I don't know. Never the same.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I think that's kind of the issue, though, is like not everyone's able to do that. Everyone's different, right? And this kind of brings me into something I wanted to talk about, which was like, would you go to Mars? Because everyone has a different opinion on whether or not they'd leave Earth.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to Mars. Like, I don't care. I don't care if the Earth is burning and you tell me to hop on a jet. I'll be the last one here, motherfucker. Actually, you got to leave me with at least somebody else so I can get this human race restarted.
Right. You want to have like the Adam and Eve like type thing where you're gonna be
what was it? I'm not a god. At that point maybe I am.
Yeah, last
everybody
one
related to me.
You're gonna end up having like a Wall-E type situation. You're gonna be Wall-E and your Eva's gonna come flying out of nowhere.
Nah, I'm gonna have a Boruto situation where it's just me and one other guy fighting for the death of the world. See who's winning. There's just two of us alive. Death match.
That's funny as hell, actually. Here's the thing. Why wouldn't you want to go to Mars?
Because, like, it's not guaranteed and it's a long trip for you to fuck up.
Okay.
Like, you run out of food on Mars, next nearest food's not coming for a couple of years.
Right.
You run out of water, electricity, oxygen. Nothing is coming for years. It takes you years to get there. It could take them years to send supplies.
I'm not disagreeing.
One greedy motherfucker that eats a little too much, and you got a real problem.
I'm in the same respect as, like, I wouldn't go to Mars. I think it's ridiculous.
It's like, here's the thing. People are signing up for one-way trips. Like, you're never coming back. You're just okay with that? Like,
I think you and I have like such ourselves so rooted in this planet at this point in time. Like, I feel like the people that are signing up to go have either devoted their lives to science or don't have themselves like rooted on this planet, don't have like too many connections, and are willing to just leave and not come back because then they can make new connections elsewhere.
Yeah, but like, I don't think he ever replaced the connections.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the idea of going to Mars baffles me for the sole reason of, I get that this planet may not be able to sustain us any longer, but this is where we were, created, and this is where we're supposed to live. And the fact that we're trying to juxtapose and put ourselves on another planet seems weird because it's not built to house us. We're trying to adapt the planet to us, and like, it doesn't work that way. We should adapt to the planet, but we just can't.
Yeah. I don't know. We're kind of a flawed creature.
But like, also evolution, like in like the sense that, okay, we've gotten the world to this point, but evolution should dictate that we should change to be able to survive the coming changes in the planet, right?
Yeah, I don't know. We're not evolving though. And you know what's hard for people to accept? We may just go extinct. Lots of species have, lots of species will continue to. We just may be one of them.
Like, yeah, we had a good run.
We've had a great run. A spectacular run.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing is,
I'm saying though, sorry, if the world's gonna end, do not let it be a goddamn pandemic. Zombie apocalypse, alien invasion.
Here's the thing. I don't want an alien invasion.
Anything but a pandemic.
I don't want an alien invasion at all. If we're going to die and go extinct, I want to, because we're on top. I want to go out on top. Like, I don't want anything coming in and taking over like us. Like, let's just keep our spot as the best.
But, for the first time ever, you know what aliens would do? They would force the human race, who right now, everybody has a problem with everybody else for something. Everybody hates each other in some facet for some reason because of something. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would take away almost all that hatred because it's no longer a me versus them mentality, even in the species of human. It's a me. We've got to fuck these guys up as a species or we done. Like there's a whole, you know what I'm saying?
It's like a unifying factor.
Like the whole world would have to unite. Like we'd be running like the world allied forces fighting against the friggin' aliens.
That's a cool way to think about it too. If I was
like, that's the only way we're uniting.
Yeah, 100%. There's not, and even then, I have a feeling that some people would just be like, "Nah, we're joining the aliens." It'd be like, "What do you mean you're joining the aliens?" Like, this is some double-crossing, backstabbing stuff that you're pulling on me right now, and I'm not about it. But, like...
There would definitely, too, be some people protesting us going to war with the aliens. Like, oh, they're our friends. They're trying to help. Nah, we get our military run. For that war, I don't want the U.S. and Canada running our military. We need our most ruthless leaders. Get Kim out there. Get friggin' Tom Hussein, get all those people.
I mean, that's one way to put it. That's for sure. I don't disagree at all. Like you can't be diplomatic in that respect because one, I'm assuming they're not going to be able to speak our language. So like, it's not like you can like argue with them or even like negotiate with them, right?
No, exactly.
So it's all or nothing. It's let's just nuke them. Let's put everything we got at them. Let's send them out of here. Let's become one as a human race and not, like disregard our differences to fight this one power. I think that's kind of the issue we have right now is that everyone feels like, they need to have some reason to hate someone right now. Like,
no, it's not even that. It's that, I don't think it's about hating other people necessarily. I think the problem is everybody feels that just because somebody doesn't agree with your morals or ethics or opinions, that they're somehow evil for that in your mind.
Mm.
And then what you do is you take these opinions and you put them all together in a generalization because we love to generalize. And then basically you generalize the group and then you build a hatred towards that group because of some some reason, just because they don't agree with what you're doing, because they don't agree they're our enemy, I guess is the way to look at it. And some people don't, right? Like it's a weird, only certain groups that are fighting for certain things decide to villainize. The rest are actually pretty tolerant of the other group and would like to have a conversation about it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Generalizations scare me because I think it's like such a dangerous path to go down.
No, in by what I so there's some another TikTok, but this girl had, sorry, my cords are all tangling up. Sorry, there's some girl on TikTok, and she says her thing is that she avoids men. But basically, what her logic is that if you have a box of cookies and there's 12 cookies in that box, and some of them may be made of shit, and you can't tell which ones are which, you're going to be weary of all the cookies. That analogy only works if every single guy looks the same, acts the same, talks the same, does the same things, has the same moral and ethical code, which just isn't true.
Yeah, because we're all unique. Like every person is unique. Different. Every single person on this planet is unique.
There's some men that take incredible that protect and stand up for women when they need it in situations like that, and then there's other men that are victimizers, and like it's different because like you're trying to generalize this whole group. But the other problem is you're never going to get the agreement, or even on issues that people can agree with. Everybody can agree that rape is one of the most heinous crimes, and that somebody who actually has raped another person should be hung or shot by firing. Like, I genuinely believe that people that have actually committed rape should be fully in jail, and I have no issues with that. They should be in jail, they should be executed, they should be castrated. However, people who didn't do it, and by villainizing men, saying that all of us are rapists, we're going to be less likely to help you if you get in a more dangerous situation. If you end up in a situation that you need help from another guy, but you've said that all men are rapists, I'm not going to get involved because I don't want to get in shit for that situation, and I don't really feel compelled to help. But if you were more like, hey, this is the problem we've been having with some men, here's some ways you can help, that would be much more of a phrase that I would respond to better.
I think that's half the issue with a lot of activism right now. Is like everyone has the agenda and maybe the right moral intentions behind it, but no one is actually doing anything productive about it to get to where they want to be. Right? They can say everything they want, but until you actually, get your hands dirty and put yourself out there and start, doing something that makes a physical change, you're essentially doing nothing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think a lot of people have come to that realization yet, which is kind of sad, right? Like, you can say everything you want, you can repost whatever you want, but you're falling victim to this like mindless game where your guilt is being satisfied by, pretending to be an activist without actually going out and marching or going out and like trying to change legislation, or, putting yourself out in a position where you might fail, but the failure isn't detrimental. That failure is just, one more step into trying to figure out the right thing to do or how to get the right things changed.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. And even like when it comes to racism, I don't think, like, I'm not a racist person. I've got many different friends of many different colors, and apparently that's once again not an excuse. I don't treat people differently. I grew up in a very multicultural town. My elementary school, there was only 2 to 3, maybe 4 white kids in each class. Like, it was a very diverse group of students. So I'm come from a area, like, I'm just from outside of Toronto, and it's very, very diverse. There is very, very few. So I don't see or despair against different groups. And I treat everybody the same regardless of what they look like. And I think that should be more than enough. And if there was somebody being racist, I would speak out against it. But I don't think I need to be actively going against, like, I don't think I need to be actively posting about racial issues that are happening. But the thing is, what can I do? What do you, like, does me actually posting shit on my story make any kind of fucking difference?
This is my argument against that,
doesn't.
And I agree with you, because when the whole black square thing was going around, I understand the message behind it. I think it's great. I don't have anything against it. I just think it's only influential if you're already a person who has a multi-million, maybe even 10,000, 100,000 person outreach. If you're just like a normal person within your community and have like 300 followers or whatever, that group of people probably also follows you. You probably follow them, and you probably also follow the same other people. So when you see, you probably saw 300 black squares, but they also saw the same 300 black squares that you saw. It's just this inbreeding of socio-political activism that doesn't reach further than that group of small group of people.
And honestly, that's what I'm trying to get across here is almost now that I think about it a little more, and now that you kind of said it like that, I think almost there's different levels of activism. There's like surface level activism, which are the people that know very little but are posting just because they want to look like they care about it, because they think that by posting about the problem, you have made some kind of meaningful contribution. And to be honest, you really haven't. You've just informed me of a problem that I already know exists. If I see another post about that girl who tried to stab the other girl getting shot, I'm just going to unfollow, because in all fairness, I know that's happened. I know it's bad, but unless you've got a great way to go about solving police reform that is other than defunding the police,
it's not a great idea. Yeah.
Which is not a good idea. You can't defund the police. And we see in some areas there are like these record levels of crime right now because of all this tension and all of the current political climate we sit in with COVID. So the solution is not defund the police. It maybe get the police better training, give them less power. Like, there's a lot of things you can do differently, yes. But I think, too, a lot of people need to look at the situations they're put in, especially with that girl with a knife. I don't see where the time for a warning shot or a taser would have been. If somebody's attacking you with a knife, I do not want them shooting them with a taser, because that's going to make them convulse. And when you're holding a knife and convulsing, I don't know what they...
Yeah, the knife, it's so sporadic. You don't know what's going to happen. And they could end up hurting themselves, too.
They could end up hurting... just as easily, they could end up hurting themselves. They could end up hurting somebody else. Yeah. So that whole situation's bad. And so many people post about this. And then there's the next level. The activists who are actually making a contribution to this goddamn world, because they're the people that are coming up with solutions and going to these policy and these makers, lawmakers, stuff like that. If you just post on social media, get 1 million views, that's great. But if nobody ever contacts any policymakers, lawmakers, or comes up with any ideas as to how to actually solve these issues, then you're not really doing anything in the grand scheme of things. I want people to, instead of posting problems, post their own solution that is logical and reasonable, and explain why it's logical and reasonable, and then back it up with how to go about funding it. Like, when you start a company, you think of how to do all these different things. And what you're doing by making a product is you're solving an issue in somebody's life. Essentially, that's what products do. If you're bored, you have video games to fulfill that need. You're fulfilling needs. So with these social issues, I'd say it's the same as a product. They need to fix the problem or find some way to solve it, rather than just create awareness around the problem. Great. Once everybody's aware of the problem, cool. Now we know there's an issue, but how the hell are we going to fix it?
So I actually saw something very nice today. So I have a buddy who's big into fitness, and he has a degree in it, and he posted this thing saying that there's only 5 supplements that are FDA approved out there, and that those are the only 5 that are actually useful for weight loss or whatever it was that he was talking about, and that all these other ones don't actually follow the laws of thermodynamics, which I don't know what that means, but he does, so I trust him. And he was like, if you want to lose weight, the best way to do it is not to go through supplements or any hacks. It's to have a caloric deficit in your day by 200 to 500 calories. And then he went on to even say, if you're interested in doing this, DM me and we'll figure it out together. That's a solution to a problem he presented, right? That's a problem that's known. It's a problem he represented to us, but he came up with a solution. That's what you're saying. If you just want to present a problem to me, great. I don't want to hear it, because if you have nothing better to tell me other than this is a problem, that's fine and dandy, but like, I need you to give me more. I don't care if your idea is bad, because eventually, if enough people give us enough ideas, and this is the glory of the internet, is enough ideas, one of them will finally be a good one. Someone will have a good idea out there, and we'll find that idea eventually, because there's just so much knowledge and so many opinions being shared throughout the day.
Yeah. And I think part of the other thing is people in some ways need to take this to a less personal level. It doesn't need to be about the people that oppose your idea or have different opinions than you. It shouldn't be about those people. I think instead it needs to be about the people that I don't even know.
You want to take it from being directed towards a person to being directed towards more like the concept, the idea, like the overarching theme of it, right? And I know what you mean, but like, I think the reason why we target people in specific is because it's easy, and it's like the stepping stones into reaching the greater issue.
But here's the thing. How does canceling one person help the issue at all?
I don't think you're right. It doesn't. That's where...
How does gaslighting one person because of something bad they've said do anything for the solution? It doesn't, in the grand scheme of things. It just uses fear, which isn't really a great motivator.
I think you're right in the sense that once they're canceled, that's it, and now what? They need to act on that person being canceled as like that leap forward, being like, okay, we're gonna take now this person, and then we're gonna take the group they were involved with that was pushing these poor ideals, and then from that group you're gonna go to the next one and to the next one, and then eventually you'll start to reach a point where your movement is gonna either reach these people and eliminate them from whatever it is they're doing, or the people that are within these organizations that are pushing that agenda that isn't great, like, or the ideal that goes against what is morally right for most people, it's going to scare them into taking a step back or changing their policy or their ideals to match more of what we would consider the ideal moral stance.
And it's so funny too, because the problem that I'm going to say with cancel culture is there's no redemption. The idea behind failing is that you come back and you learn something, you got better for it. If you made a mistake and you can genuinely learn from that, that's people talk about prison. The same people that go around canceling people are the same people that want prison reform. And it's like it's to regard these people that have made some horrendous errors that have landed them in prison. Not necessarily, because not everybody's in there because they did it and they're guilty. But the people that are guilty should get a second chance once they've thought about it and can reevaluate their decisions and maybe make different ones. And I think with cancel culture, people don't get a chance to redeem themselves, to do that, to acknowledge the mistake and try and better themselves afterwards. They're kind of already, they've just been canceled, and everybody dislikes them now for this one thing they did. And even no matter how far they can try and come back from it, they just don't seem to.
Yeah. I think the funny thing with cancel culture too is like, you always get the people that take it that one step too far. And I think that's like, it's kind of the whole idea of Karens, right?
Oh, don't even mean you.
And I know you told me earlier today that you would love to meet a Karen.
Oh, yeah, that's the issue. See, so the only time I've ever had interactions with Karens is when I was younger. And when you're really young as like a kid, you're a little more nervous and hesitant to do stuff just because you kind of assume adults are right. And it's so funny because now that you're in this like 20-year-old age, you realize very quickly that they generally aren't. Not necessarily always, but typically you're just as much in the right as they are.
Most of the time, because it's over something that's an opinion rather than a fact.
Exactly. So like I don't know. But all I really want with Karens is I just want to have an interaction with them. Because oh my god, the fun I could have with that is like unbelievable. And the best part is I'm got to this point where I got this understanding that oh my god, I could get into Karen's head so easily because I know what to do to push the buttons. Like for example, I don't know. If they're yelling at me about something I'm doing and it's because they have kids, then you know how you really make that Karen even angrier? You just use a bunch of terrible language in front of her kids. She's gonna hate that even more. You get her all riled up. Like I think the goal with me interacting with these people would be to actually get them to the point where they're gonna try and take a swing.
What do you benefit from that though? Or is it just pure entertainment value?
There's nothing, in my opinion, more gangster than having somebody like vein popping out of their head screaming at you, and you are calm, cool, composed, and collected. You look like a baller. Doesn't matter what you do.
And it makes them look crazy.
It makes them look insane, bro. There's this video of a kid that was flying a drone on a beach, and some lady like jumps on top of him, and she's like she's like a 4-year-old woman, and she's hitting this like 15-year-old kid, like just whacking him. And she's like, quit assaulting me. And he's like, you're holding on to me. And she's got like his shirt like pulled down to almost his belly button, like half ripped. And she's like, you're assaulting me. He's like, no, I'm not. Like, let go. It's so funny because this kid is so cool, calm, and collected, and it makes this lady just look like the even bigger and bigger of an idiot, and she's gonna get in trouble. You can't assault a minor.
No, I find this with every like video of a Karen that I've ever seen, that they live in this delusion, and I don't understand where it comes from. Like, how can you be so like in your own fantasy world that you don't realize you're the one assaulting the child? You know what I mean? Like, you're holding on, and all you have to do is let go. It's just like when someone's claiming they're drowning in the shallow, and it's like, no, just stand up.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And also, too, some people make such a big deal out of stuff that just isn't. They get so riled up about you doing something that is literally like a minor inconvenience to them. Like minor. Like being too loud. I don't know.
Right? Like, I don't understand where the need to share your opinion with every stranger you ever see about something that isn't necessarily, right or wrong. It's just based on your own values. Like, I get it. If I'm out in public and someone's being really loud, like, I might be annoyed, but I'm not going to go out of my way at the restaurant or whatever to be like, can you just please shut the fuck up? Right? Like, I'm going to just deal with it and move on. And it'll be like, oh, this sucked, but whatever. Maybe I can get some entertainment value out of it. Maybe they'll say some crazy stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, I don't know. Just let people live their lives and stop trying to make the world your utopia, and understand that the world doesn't revolve around you. I think that's the big fault with Karens, is that the world revolves around them or their families.
But it doesn't. The world doesn't revolve around anybody.
No, it doesn't. But I think that's the fault that they fall into, right? And it's tricky because you can't just tell them that. And I feel like Karens have kind of become this thing where it's like, to be a Karen, you've grown up where you've been handed everything. Because I don't think there's a Karen that grew up not having everything they wanted, or not having someone agree with every opinion they ever had. Like, that Karen always had a yes man. And I think that's dangerous. I hate people that are just yes men. I want my own opinion, and I want you to have your own opinion.
But I like that. You know what I hate? When people just tell you their one, when you ask, and I do this with people, if they have an opinion about something, I don't always, and sometimes I do just disagree, because I'm pretty stubborn. I have some strong opinions. But a lot of the time I'll actually ask questions about their opinion to try and learn more how they're thinking. Because in all fairness, reality doesn't really exist. If you think about it, every single person, not one, not two people on this entire planet see the world the same.
Right. No, of course.
It's really weird to think that you can divide yourself into one category, either Democrat or Republican, left wing, right wing, conservative, for political views, because I feel like everybody takes a little bit of both, and everybody has such different opinions, and everybody's reality is based off just what they've perceived. So I think people, instead of just shouting their one opinion about something, should actually try and learn that other person's point of view and why they may think that way. And you can either further reinforce the opinion you currently have with that thing, because you can say, okay, that's wrong. But you can also learn some stuff that maybe you didn't know about the other side, and maybe adjust your opinion slightly, or even just be less regarded to one way. But then what happens is you'll start asking people these questions about their opinion, and they'll get super defensive and just keep repeating back basically the same argument they began with. And that's when it kind of becomes an issue. And that's why I enjoy some of those like debate shows so much, like Louder with Crowder. I don't know if you ever watched it. He does these bits called Change My Mind, and he comes out with a very, very controversial statement like male privilege doesn't exist, change my mind. And then what his goal is to actually get his mind changed. He's trying to sit there and learn about how these other people think of it in their way, and understand and either further reinforce his opinion or learn a little more about the other side. And I think that's got to happen more. And I think people need to be more willing to have a conversation with people with different opinions than them. And I think by that, they'll either get a better understanding of their own opinion they've formed about that, or maybe change it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's dangerous for you to keep us like one solid opinion throughout your entire life. Like, your opinions should change on things. Like, the more you learn about something, your opinion should either get more stronger or weaker, or switch. Like, if you just don't go through your life not learning something and changing your opinions and just being stuck on something, it's very hard for me to believe that your opinion's right. No, because exactly. It feels like you're just being so stubborn that you're not willing to listen to the other side, and you've just made up your mind, and you're not actively trying to find new ways to back your opinion, or find new ways to switch your opinion or alter your opinion. That you could keep the same opinion but alter it slightly to be, more context dependent, right? That's fine. But like, your opinion shouldn't be a static thing. Opinions are dynamic. They should change over time. When I was younger, I wasn't huge into rap music, and then, high school hit, I was starting to chat with new people, and they introduced me to new music. And it's with music especially, right? It's finding the genres and subgenres that you like. It's just your opinion for that style of music changes as you get older. Now I also like, go back and listen to some older music. I listen to, more variety of things. I'm not so stuck on one genre.
I don't know. Music's a weird thing, especially rap music, because it's weird because to think about, because these guys talk about very real situations that even people that haven't experienced them can almost, I don't know, relate to or get a very good idea. Like the rap songs, in my opinion, that go the hardest are the ones that paint the best pictures of somebody else's situation, because you kind of get to learn about them and who they are and what they want to show you. Like, that's what I find very cool about rap music, is it's these harsh realities a lot of the time that are just being showcased in a very different manner. And it also shows kind of each person's circumstances and what they came from and what they're used to.
My issue with that is when people start trying to fake it, right? A buddy of mine, a very close buddy of mine, actually kind of articulated this opinion to me the other day, and he was like, rap music's only good if they've really lived that situation, because it's real. When people start faking it, it shows that the art form isn't like as, full of talent as other forms of music, where they can get a different emotion across, because the emotion that rap artists tend to be able to put across is this hard-hitting, grimy, down to earth. But if it's so so easily replicable and so easily fake, like you can put such a facade to create it, is it really that talented of an art form? And like, I don't necessarily agree wholeheartedly with the opinion, but I do agree in the sense that like, you shouldn't be able to create something without the feeling of it being visceral to you.
Yeah. I don't know though. I feel like each guy, it depends on the artist too, because some of them choose to, as you said, kind of fake it, but then there's also that are very, very real and talk about these real situations.
Oh, 100%.
And I think those are the guys though that kind of like last. I don't know. There's guys that can just make bangers too. Like Uzi. He doesn't I don't relate to any Uzi music, but man, does he got some bangers.
I think like, the difference is like Uzi I don't think touches on as much of like the dark, grimy stuff, right? That we were kind of talking about. But you were right when you said, and I agree with you, where the ones that stick around are the ones that truly lived it. The ones that are faking it never make it. And like they never have the longevity.
No, exactly. And it's rappers got to do one of two things. They either need to be real, like Kendrick Lamar. Very real. He talks about the situations he had, like that song Good Kid Mad City. The whole album Good Kid Mad City is basically about how even though you may not be about that life, if you live in a certain area, it's sometimes a necessity, because if people are like, and I've never been in this experience, but if people are shooting at, like you're getting shot at and there's shootings and stuff in your area, you need to almost become a part of that violence in order to protect yourself, which is a very like weird idea. And I think the problem though with some of these guys that are authentic is they just don't last because that life eventually catches up to them. And they're so young too, man. Like rappers too, as they get older, especially if they're that kind of poppier artists where they make more hit songs, they need to business up. Like the ones that have done really well are like your Jay-Z, your P. Diddy, those guys that have actually went and made brands out of their image after the fact, rather than just kept it in rap music, because you're not going to stay relevant forever. That's the truth.
No, but then there's also I don't think anyone should.
Like King Von, like rest in peace, but he was very about it and he lived that life, but that life is ultimately, even when he was kind of out of it, is ultimately what killed him. Like Young Thug paid Lil Baby a like ridiculous amount of money for him to move out of the hood. Like
I remember that.
This is after Yes Indeed. Like he's making so much money. He's got freestyle, he's got bangers on bangers. He's one of the biggest artists, and this friggin' he's too obsessed with his kind of old life and what he used to do to leave, and it's going to be what ends his career. And they just don't want, like, you don't want to see that. I
wonder if for him it was like the worry of not knowing what to talk about after moving out, right?
Yeah,
like he doesn't have those experiences to draw on anymore if he moves. So I wonder if that was like his fear.
Yeah, I don't know. They've got a business up. Snoop Doggy Dogg has done a very good job of putting himself into like a figure. You need to go from a rapper to a figure, to like a public figure, basically.
I agree entirely. Actually, that's the best, I think, person you could have picked to depict that, right? Where Snoop Dogg seems to be everywhere. Like I swear to God, Snoop Dogg has clones because he's in like 3 places at once.
Guy knows how to make money. That's it. He knows that he made himself into a mogul that would last generations on generations. And he's done it. Snoop Dogg hasn't really dropped much music lately.
No, but I think it's because he's like ingrained in like our culture still, because he's like, he interacts with the youth so much. I think this is where we saw it the most recently was the Jake Paul Ben Askren fight. Snoop Dogg believed just so much in Jake Paul that he put $2 million on the table.
Yeah, I am tainted about that fight.
I know, but like you see Snoop Dogg actually going out and like trying to find new talent, and I think that's where he's been successful, in that he didn't try and just roll with the same crew that eventually become tired, irrelevant, run through. He decided to continue moving with what the culture wanted.
Let's do this motherfucker. Let's not forget, has taken income diversification to like some next level. You can buy Snoop Dogg like like smoking accessories. You can buy Snoop Dogg cookbooks. You can buy Snoop Dogg edible cookbooks. You can buy like Snoop Dogg merch. You can buy Snoop Dogg friggin' listen to him in concerts, listen to him at shows, listen to him at speaking events, listen to him broadcasting. He has his own drink, like he has his own wine, man. How much more diverse can you get? You really can't get any more diverse. Like he's diversified his income so well, and it's coming in from so many different faucets. He's never gonna let himself. He's never going to die out because he's going to stay popular with our generation. And the cool thing I've found about music is it seems to pass down through generation. Like when I first got to high school, I was like you. I hadn't listened to a ton of rap music unless it was super mainstream. And then when I played football, a lot of the guys were playing like Bobby, like old Bobby right before he got locked up, like Chief Keef, all these guys I'd never heard of. And to be honest, they were out of what I would consider my generation, right? Even Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and those guys, The Chronic was made in 2001. You and I were 1 year old when that came out, but still know the beat, still know the lyrics because they're that famous, but also too because the older generations put us on.
Yeah, and this goes back to me telling you that the older generation's role in our society is to pass down this wisdom. It doesn't have to be super philosophical all the time. It could be as easy as showing us music. And it doesn't necessarily have to be rap music. It can be anything. Like my buddy Steven has gotten put on to so much classic rock by his dad to the point where they share that as a bonding thing. They have a love for AC/DC, right? And it's just being able to show the new generations something that you grew up with, something that had a message for you, so that they might find the same message and go back, and then they start learning about the history. And without history, things will repeat themselves. Bad things will repeat themselves. And so children might be able to look at this old stuff and gain a message so that it doesn't repeat itself. And then they get new messages from the new things that other people have drawn on.
It scares the hell out of me about history. Sorry,
no, please go.
We are going off some other fucker's opinion. Like in all fairness, who writes history? True. Historians. But what makes them qualify? We're basically we're guessing and making assumptions based off the knowledge that we have of what used to happen, based off these logs that were written by people. That's their opinion. It's really weird to think about that, because history kind of scares me a little bit, because so many people too have such different interpretations of how slavery went and stuff like that. And it's hard to really know because everybody's opinion is slightly biased. So history could be biased.
So I was listening to this show on YouTube called Inside Jokes. It was a show by Andrew Schultz, and he takes comedians and they sit down and they brainstorm ideas on how to make what was not a very good joke, or maybe not an approachable joke, approachable. And there's this one guy who was talking about this idea that if you were just to erase history and start fresh, right, and not present the ideas of the Holocaust, someone might never even come up with the idea of the Holocaust again, like genocide. The idea of genocide could just fizzle out entirely if no one referenced genocide ever. It's just if you did made it disappear from the history books, who's to say it ever happened, and then who's to say it will ever be repeated because no one knows it ever happened, right?
Yeah.
We always say that we're learning from history, but not all of us are necessarily learning the right ideas from history, right? Someone might see the Holocaust and go, oh, that's a good idea. And obviously it's not. That's a terrible thing to do to someone, a terrible thing to do to anyone. But the idea of being there's a gap in the history. I don't know what that tragic event was anymore because it doesn't exist, right? You don't come up with that idea based on something. It has to be fresh in your mind. And if it's fresh in your mind, coming straight of your thoughts, you're a scary individual, right? At that point, you have some weird vendetta against someone for some reason, or some group of people for some reason, and that now doesn't come from something you've learned.
But it's funny though, because even though in the case of the Holocaust, history kind of did repeat itself.
Yeah, 100%.
The reason World War II happened is because we the Allied nations that fought Germany the first time wrote the Treaty of Versailles that screwed Germany over so bad. There were so many things that they were not allowed to do because of what they'd previously done in the First World War, and in doing so, we created the monster that started the second one, right? When World War I ended, Adolf Hitler was in a hospital bed in Germany, and you have these soldiers that have just come back from the war. They've lost the war, and now they're placed under all these restrictions to make their country less powerful because of the crimes they did before. You could almost, and you can't really blame the countries because they didn't know what was going to happen. But by doing that to that group, by basically putting restrictions on that group of people, you created an even worse monster.
Right. My other whole example would be the genocide in Rwanda. Would the group opposing the people in Rwanda, right, the two clans or tribes or whatever, would one have decided to try and commit genocide over the other if they hadn't potentially seen what had happened in the Holocaust? Or even going back further in history, would Hitler have had the idea of the Holocaust if he hadn't seen X event happen prior in history? Say like the Salem witch trials, right?
You never know.
Like, that's my point, right? And that was the whole thing this guy was getting at, is if we just eliminated history, yes, we wouldn't have something to learn from, but we may not make the same mistakes because we don't have the example.
That is true.
So it's like this weird conundrum, because like you'll never know because it's not a feasible thing to do, right?
Yeah. No,
but it's an interesting idea.
It is an interesting idea. It's really interesting. Well, it's even interesting to think about the transfer of powers, like between countries over time.
Elaborate.
It's really weird. Well, at one point, England was the superpower of the world, and then it was right at one point the Ottoman Empire was the superpower of the world, which is a country that has been divided up into several countries. It doesn't exist anymore, right? Like Russia, it took so much for America to become the next superpower, and it's going to shift again, right? The Romans at one point were the most powerful. There were very, very powerful civilizations all throughout history. Mm-hmm. And then coming forward in today, America seems to be that superpower, but eventually, as history's shown us, the powers of the world collapse. They don't stay forever. So when is that day going to come?
Right.
They don't. And America has built their power on something very weird. They did it by offering to protect other countries, right? America capitalized on what they're best at, which is military strength. They're not the best in the world at just about anything else other than incarcerating people and having a large military.
Yeah.
But it sounds like an asshole thing to say, but it's true.
No, you're right. I mean,
facts don't care about your feelings. That's what I like to go with.
I mean, you're not wrong. I
guess too. I got to give Ben Shapiro some credit for that. That's his line. It's on a T-shirt. I want to get one of those T-shirts. Just facts don't care about your feelings.
I mean, it's such a relatable thing to say. I mean, for most people, because it's just the harsh truth that people generally don't want to accept. Like, people don't understand that as much as they want their opinion to be true, the facts outweigh it, and there's no way you can stop that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But there's other people, though, that now we're getting this new group of people. Let's say they don't believe in statistics and they don't believe in science. Literally, the two metrics we have come up that we have used to understand the entire world, how it works, like pretty much at this point, we got the planet 99% figured out other than the ocean.
Right.
We know pretty much every species that exists on Earth. Now, we're still finding a few new ones, but very few.
Yeah, it's not at the same rate as it used to.
Pretty much, and we pretty much know how the systems of all of these species work because we can treat animals. We understand how gravity works, which is what's keeping us on the ground. We understand how our Earth rolls around the sun and how come we don't feel that. We understand our atmosphere. We understand so much about the world, and you build so many of these opinions on this understanding. And then there's these people that say, well, I don't believe in statistics. They're flawed. Or I don't believe in science. How? Like, if something has been tested over and over and over and over and over again, at what point do you say that everybody should believe that?
That's fair. I mean, it's kind of like the whole idea too of like whether or not people believe the Earth is round or not, right? Like there's some
if you
crazy.
Still believe the Earth is flat, like go to space and see for yourself.
My buddy sent me the funniest
or
Twitter
sail
page the
around
other
the world
day.
And wait till you fall off.
No, my buddy sent me the funniest page the other day, and it was this thing called the Dinosaur Earth Society, and it's this group of people that believe the Earth is shaped like a dinosaur, and there are giant ice walls keeping the water from falling off the edge. And it looks like it was a page created by a guy who was just, joking around, but is now garnered this massive cult following, and it killed me. It was the funniest thing I have seen in so long. And I just love the fact that there's so many people out there that believe, or that want to believe, that the Earth is not round, that they're willing to decide that it's the shape of a dinosaur.
Yeah, like that's what scares me about cults. They're too easy to start and run.
I know.
Like they're so easy. Oh my god, if I wanted to run a cult, I'd have the greatest. Bro, I could run a cult. Like,
I tried to convince one of my buddies in high school to go to his guidance counselor and tell them that after school he wanted to be a cult leader and see what they could do for him.
Bro, it's not that hard though. It's super easy. All you gotta do is you gotta take some opinion and prove it to be factual slightly. You just need to have some form of proof, and the proof can be complete illusion. And you need to get people to believe in this. You need to sell it. You need some skills. You need to be a bit of a good salesman. You got to be a little bit charismatic. And then you got to figure out who to pick for that cult. If you're starting a cult, you don't pick your everyday people that are stubborn and opinionated. You go for those people that are down on their luck, are looking for something to believe in, and are maybe not the most. Their opinions have been challenged recently, so they're scared about what they actually know. And then if you can assure them that whatever you're doing is right, and by them doing this, they will be able to get themselves out of that situation. You can give yourself such power.
You kind of just described the scenario of like,
I'm
maybe where like of like 9/11, how we've all like for some reason like they convinced a lot of people that all Muslim people are terrorists.
Yeah,
like I feel like it's such a cults in general are such a dangerous thing to start. But like the way you begin them is also just the way a lot of ideology start and a lot of like biases or prejudice starts, right?
You know what's funny too? It's not okay to assume, to generalize and say that all people from a certain place or of a certain color or anything like that like are terrorists or are criminals or anything like that. That is terrible and horrid to say.
Yeah,
but all men are rapists. Well, that's not a problem. like no. Do you hear the ridiculousness of what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. My point again, generalization is a dangerous game.
It's a dangerous game. It's a very dangerous game. And we know it's a dangerous game. That's what's so funny, but we're still playing it. We don't learn from our history. We're stupid. We do the same things over and over again. We just use the tools differently based on who they benefit. That's the end all to be all.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the funny thing, because like generalization is like playing a game of Russian roulette where 5 of the 6 times you're gonna be fine, but that one time you generalize something and it's just really bad, it's going to end you.
I got an idea, Ian, for a podcast episode we're doing soon, because here's the thing I want to prove. We're gonna take a couple people. We're gonna divide everybody into groups. We're doing this full segregation style. All right. We're dividing everybody into groups. All right. We're doing this. We're doing a couple. We're doing a couple white men. Couple we're picking a couple people from each culture. We're picking a couple people from each gender. So there's at least 2 people, or even we do this in a segment on each episode. In the first one, we bring in nothing but white males. Second one, we bring nothing but black males. Third one, we bring nothing but Asian women. Fourth one, we bring nothing but, and we take these people and we ask them very difficult questions and we see what their answers are. And I bet you $1,000 that even though you have 2 people from it, what you'd consider that same demographic group, they would have probably less in common than 2 people from completely different demographic groups, or even the same amount.
Right. I like this idea a lot. And
I actually think it would just be a very interesting kind of social experiment, because it would show the flaw of generalization. Because if you can prove that X amount of people have these different opinions, and then imagine you do that on an even larger scale, how much larger that divide gets.
Isaac, today is the day we declare war on generalization.
Bro,
this is the time.
This is the time. Today is the... You want to watch the Mildly Indecisive podcast? You want to know what this podcast is about? We're tearing down generalization to start, motherfuckers. All right?
Make your own opinions. We're all different. We're all unique. No more need for generalization. Get rid of it. Get that word out of your vocabulary. It's done. No more generalizations. This is the Mildly Indecisive podcast.
We are mildly indecisive, and sometimes we disagree. And I like this idea because it will prove something in a very, very concrete way. And the weird, like, the other thing too, I think that people get tied up in a lot when they're listening is what you say, how somebody perceives what you've said versus what your intentions are, can be 2 completely different things. Have you ever had that where you've said something to somebody that you didn't mean in an offensive way? You're maybe making a joke or something like that, and somebody got incredibly offended, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't mean for you to take it that way. In those situations, it's kind of weird because a lot of people naturally assume the person that said it's in the wrong.
Yeah.
But how so? You couldn't know ahead of time that person wasn't going to perceive what you said that way. You don't know when it's leaving your mouth because you think differently. So I think by doing this experiment, what people will, they're like, people's perception of what the questions even are. You got to make the questions interesting. You can't make them super simple answers. You can't make them yes or no answers, because in yes or no answer situations, you're going to get a lot of similarities, but that's because you've only given people limited options.
Right. So we have to come up with some questions that are super polarizing and that aren't just yes or no. So also, this is a great idea. If anyone that is listening to this has any idea for any hard-hitting questions, tweet them at us at mildly indecisive, comment them on our, DM us on Instagram at mildly_indecisive, or comment on the in the YouTube video at the Mildly Indecisive podcast. And we can look through there. We can try and find some interesting questions, and we'll try and come up with some on our own here. And we'll try and conduct a little social experiment over the course of the next few episodes.
Exactly.
I like this.
I like this idea too. I think it could be very interesting.
No, for
just
sure.
to see. And you got to pull. I think too, people underestimate sometimes what you've already seen and what your perceptions of different things, how much those make up your opinion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, your opinions are all based on things that you've learned in the past, and it's all based on your personal experiences, right? So I think it's scary when people just try and appropriate the opinions of other people, if you will, make your own opinions. It's the whole thing about an opinion is it's yours and it's uniquely yours. Stealing someone else's opinion is generally not true to yourself, and I think that's dangerous. You
need to listen to a bit of everything. You should people need to get more diverse with their media. I don't think you should listen to either Fox or CNN. I think you should listen to a bit of both, because you're going to get both sides. And what you're also going to start to realize is how polarizing each of them are. And you'll be able to almost remove some of their biases by seeing how each side tackles the problem. And then you can formulate your own opinion somewhere in the middle.
I think that's a great point. I think it's something we should also cover in another podcast, because that's something I think we could talk about forever. But I think this is almost a great spot to leave off our first Mildly Indecisive podcast.
Oh, definitely.
I hope everyone enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button on YouTube. If you're watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating. That'd be fantastic. Until then, you can find me personally at Ian Bambro on Instagram. It's BAMBROUGH. Isaac, is there anything you'd like to plug?
No, not really. I'm just gonna say, you know what? You can also go follow me at isaac.hamilton.1, I believe is my social media handle. I'm not 100% positive. And as usual, our podcast is always sponsored by the wonderful Cookies Glass Company. Cookies Glass Company, for all of your smokable and wearable and any other type of glass needs, go to Cookies Glass Co. on Instagram. You may need to verify your age, because Instagram has now added age verification on their products, which is good because we don't want the youngins using it. That's once again cookiesglass.co on Instagram.
You can also find them at
cookiesglasscompany.com.
Yeah.
To shop online, go to cookiesglasscompany.com.